The galactic concordat had existed for 12,000 cycles. In all that time, no species had dared to challenge its authority. The Nexians, with their crystalline bodies and quantum computing minds, led the council. The Varax, master geneticists who had evolved beyond physical form, served as their closest advisors. Together, they maintained what they called perfect order across 20,000 worlds. Then humanity made contact. Ambassador Tharia, the Nexian diplomatic chief, found herself perplexed by these new creatures. They were so organic, so inefficient. Their ships used primitive fusion drives instead of quantum tunneling. Their weapons were based on crude projectiles rather than dark matter manipulation. Their bodies were soft, vulnerable, and worst of all, they seemed proud of it. "They are an amusing species," she communicated to the Concordat Council, her crystalline form refracting light in patterns of amusement. "They believe they can join our ranks as equals." The assembled representatives of 15 advanced civilizations shared in her entertainment. The Varax representative, a shimmering cloud of consciousness named Etherex, pulsed with particular disdain. Their ambassador, Marcus Reed, requests we recognize their sovereign territory, Etherex announced, including their claim to the resource-rich Orion Spur. Preposterous, came the unified response. But Reed, standing before the council in his simple cloth uniform, showed no sign of intimidation. His dark eyes reflected the crystalline architecture around him with an unsettling intensity. "The territories we claim are our birthright," he stated. "We have surveyed them, mapped them, and established colonies there over the past century. We will defend them." Theria's crystal matrix vibrated with what humans might call laughter. Defend. With what? Your primitive kinetic weapons. Your limited faster-than-light capabilities. Reed's expression remained neutral. "We prefer peaceful cooperation, but yes, we will defend our interests if necessary." "You have been spacefaring for barely 2 centuries, Etherex pulsed dismissively. "We have guided the evolution of stars." "Then you should understand evolution better," Reed replied. "The greatest predators often appear harmless until they strike." The council dismissed his words as empty bravado. They issued their decree. Humanity would be restricted to their solar system until they reached an acceptable level of civilization. All extrasolar colonies would be evacuated. Reed left without another word. 3 days later, when the Concordat's enforcement fleet arrived at the first human colony on Proxima B, they found it already evacuated. But the humans had left something behind, a quantum-encrypted message that even the Nexians took hours to decode. It contained just 5 words. "You should have listened to Reed." The enforcement fleet disappeared without a trace that day. The Concordat would soon learn that humanity hadn't revealed their true technological capabilities during first contact. They hadn't shown their real weapons, their actual fleet strength, or their mastery of dimensional physics that surpassed even the Nexians. They had simply waited, watched, and learned, like any apex predator studying its prey. The war that followed would teach the galaxy why Earth's history was written in blood, and why its species had emerged dominant on a world that had tried to kill them for millions of years. The galaxy was about to learn why humans had survived everything their harsh world had thrown at them. They were about to learn about war. Admiral Sarah Blackwood stood at the viewing deck of Terminus Station, humanity's hidden military headquarters in the Oort cloud. Before her, thousands of stealth ships shimmered into visibility as they dropped their quantum camouflage, a technology the Concordat thought impossible for primitive humans. "Status report," she commanded, her voice carrying the weight of 20 years of preparation for this moment. Commander Kai Zhang's hologram materialized beside her. "Operation Phoenix is at 97% readiness, Admiral. The Lazarus Protocol is complete across all colonies." "And the evacuations?" "Finished ahead of schedule. The Concordat believes we're retreating in fear." A slight smile crossed Long's face. "They have no idea we're repositioning for strategic advantage." The vast chamber hummed with activity as officers coordinated humanity's greatest military mobilization. What the Concordats saw as primitive fusion drives were actually advanced propulsion systems designed to mask their true capabilities. Every retreating colony was a tactical repositioning, every abandoned outpost now an automated weapons platform. "Show me the Artemis array," Blackwood ordered. The holographic display shifted, revealing a massive network of satellites orbiting distant brown dwarfs, humanity's true technological masterpiece. While the Concordat boasted of manipulating dark matter, humans had learned to harvest it. Each satellite contained enough energy to power Earth for a century, or to tear a battleship apart at the quantum level. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, chief of quantum physics, approached with a data tablet. "The latest simulations confirm it, Admiral. They're crystalline computing cores, vulnerable to our quantum resonance weapons. Their evolved energy forms can be disrupted by our dark matter pulses. We've spent decades studying their weaknesses while showing them only our strengths." Blackwood nodded. "And Project Prometheus?" "Ready." Rodriguez's eyes gleamed. "They think we're limited to conventional FTL. Wait until they see what happens when we weaponize spacetime itself." A junior officer rushed up, face pale. "Admiral, the Concordat fleet has begun systematic operations against our abandoned colonies. They're walking right into it." Blackwood watched as the tactical display showed Concordat ships approaching the trapped colonies. Each seemingly empty human settlement was actually a carefully crafted web of automated defenses and quantum-triggered explosives. "How many ships are they committing?" she asked. "Over 40% of their total fleet strength, ma'am. They're treating it as a simple cleanup operation." Overconfidence. Blackwood's voice was quiet. The oldest weakness of every empire that thought itself invincible. She turned to face the assembled command staff. "Humanity didn't spend the last 100 years just exploring space. We spent it preparing. Every technological leap we showed them was carefully calculated to seem impressive but unthreatening. Every diplomatic concession was designed to reinforce their sense of superiority." She gestured to the massive fleet surrounding them. "This is humanity's true face. Not the humble explorers they met, but the species that survived ice ages, plagues, and our own destructive potential. We learned from every war we fought, every crisis we faced. And now..." A signal flashed across the command screens. The Concordat fleet had begun landing operations on the first abandoned colony. "Now they learn." Blackwood's voice carried across the suddenly silent chamber. "Commence Operation Phoenix. Let's show the galaxy why Earth's predators evolved to hide their true strength until the perfect moment to strike." Across the void of space, quantum triggers activated. The trap was sprung. The war that would reshape the galaxy had begun, and humanity's hunters were about to become the hunted. The Nexian High Command Chamber shook as another quantum surge ripped through their defenses. Supreme Commander Vexthor's crystalline form vibrated with rage and disbelief as holographic displays showed the devastating results of humanity's first strike. Impossible. The crystalline patterns of their language reflected chaos. 7 major fleet bases, completely destroyed. 3,000 ships, just gone. How did they bypass our quantum detection grid? The answer came in the form of a transmission cutting through their supposedly impenetrable communications network. Ambassador Marcus Reed's face appeared on every screen, his expression no longer carrying its previous diplomatic restraint. "Perhaps now you understand why Earth's apex predators evolved to be deceptive hunters rather than obvious threats." Reed's voice carried a cold edge. "Your quantum detection grid. We mapped its frequencies 2 years ago. Those primitive fusion drives you mocked. Decoys. The real ships were already in position when you dismissed us as harmless." Etherex, the Varax representative, manifested in a storm of energy. "You dare. We could have uplifted you, guided you to enlightenment." "Enlightenment," Reed laughed. "You mistake technological advancement for evolutionary superiority. While you evolve beyond physical form, You forgot the fundamental law of nature: adapt or die. Humanity never stopped adapting. The chamber's sensors screamed as new contacts appeared. Human ships, far more advanced than anything they'd previously revealed, emerged from what appeared to be artificial quantum singularities. Their hulls weren't the crude metal the Concordat had seen before, but living alloys that adapted and regenerated. The colonies you're so eagerly reclaiming, Reed continued, each one is a trap. Each human settlement you occupy becomes your prison. You thought we were retreating in fear. In reality, we were positioning our pieces on the board. Vexthor watched in horror as reports flooded in. The human quantum resonance weapons weren't just destroying ships, they were unraveling the very crystalline essence of Nexian biology. The Varax's energy forms were being disrupted by dark matter pulses that shouldn't have been possible with primitive human technology. This is your final warning. Reed's voice hardened. Withdraw from human space. Acknowledge our sovereignty. Or learn why Earth's history is written in the blood of those who underestimated us. The transmission cut off, leaving the Concordat leaders in stunned silence. But before they could respond, a junior analyst burst into the chamber, their crystalline form pulsing with panic. High Command. We've detected. It's impossible. The humans have weaponized time dilation. They're creating localized temporal distortion fields around our fleet formations. Vexthor watched as entire battle groups were trapped in temporal bubbles, experiencing years of entropy in seconds. Humanity hadn't just prepared for war, they had mastered physics in ways the Concordat had thought impossible. In the space of one solar day, the mighty Concordat, uncontested for 12,000 cycles, had lost a third of its military strength to an enemy they had dismissed as primitive. As emergency signals flooded in from across the galaxy, Vexthor realized their fatal mistake. They had judged humanity by their visible technology, not understanding that on Earth, the deadliest predators were often the ones that looked least threatening. The galaxy was about to learn why humans told stories about wolves in sheep's clothing, and why they had dominated a planet full of monsters. The real war hadn't even begun. The bridge of the HSS Nemesis hummed with controlled tension as Admiral Blackwood studied the tactical display. The massive dreadnought, hidden for years in a quantum pocket dimension, represented humanity's true military capabilities. Its hull, composed of self-repairing biometal infused with dark matter, gleamed with an almost predatory sheen. The Concordat has deployed their remaining fleets in a defensive formation around their core worlds, Commander Zhang reported. They're adapting their tactics, trying to compensate for our temporal weapons. Of course they are, Blackwood smiled grimly. That's what intelligent beings do when they realize they're prey instead of predators. Initiate Operation Stardust. Across human space, thousands of seemingly dormant satellites activated. The Artemis Array, humanity's hidden superweapon, began its terrible work. Dark matter harvesters, disguised as simple research stations, powered up their quantum cores. Admiral, Dr. Rodriguez called out, the array is at full power. Targeting solutions are locked on all major Concordat fleet concentrations. Execute. The galaxy itself seemed to shudder. Beams of concentrated dark matter, guided by quantum entanglement, struck with surgical precision. Concordat ships found their crystalline cores subjected to forces that shouldn't exist in normal space. The Varax's energy forms were scattered across multiple dimensions. But this was just the beginning. Their defense grid is compromised, John announced, deploying the Lazarus swarms. Millions of microscopic robots, seeded throughout Concordat space during humanity's diplomatic missions, activated simultaneously. Each one carried a fraction of the deadliest weapon humanity had ever conceived, the ability to rewrite quantum states at the subatomic level. On Nexian worlds, crystalline structures began to vibrate at frequencies that threatened to shatter their very essence. Varax energy patterns were disrupted by precisely calculated quantum interference waves. The supposedly primitive humans had turned the Concordat's own advanced nature against them. Message from Concordat High Command, a communications officer reported. They're requesting terms. No terms, Blackwood's voice was steel. Not yet. They need to understand why challenging humanity was their greatest mistake. Launch the Prometheus protocols. Across the battlefield, human ships activated their true FTL capabilities. They didn't just travel through space, they rewrote it. Concordat defenders watched in horror as human vessels seemed to exist in multiple places simultaneously, their weapons striking from positions that defied physics itself. This is how Earth's predators hunt, Blackwood broadcast across all frequencies. We don't just overpower our prey. We change the rules of the game itself. Your technology made you complacent. Our evolution made us unstoppable. The Artemis array fired again, this time targeting the quantum substrates that maintained Concordat communications. In an instant, their entire command and control network collapsed. The mighty alien federation, which had dominated the galaxy for millennia, found itself blind, scattered, and hunted. Their breaking formation, Jung reported with clinical detachment. Multiple ships attempting emergency quantum jumps. Let them run, Blackwood ordered. Let them spread the word. The galaxy needs to understand what happens when you corner humanity. We're not just another spacefaring race. We're the species that turned our own brutal evolution into an advantage. On the tactical display, human forces methodically dismantled 12,000 years of Concordat dominance. Every weapon revealed was one they had hidden for decades. Every strategy deployed was the result of centuries studying their own conflicts. The message was clear. Humanity hadn't just prepared for war, they had prepared for absolute victory. As the battle raged across the stars, a truth became apparent to every watching species. The humans hadn't evolved beyond their predatory nature. They had perfected it, hidden it, and waited for the perfect moment to reveal why us apex predators were now the galaxy's worst nightmare. In the ruins of their once magnificent capital world, the remaining Concordat leaders gathered for what they knew might be their final council. The crystalline spires of their greatest city lay shattered, their quantum matrices disrupted by human weapons they still couldn't fully comprehend. Supreme Commander Vexthor's form flickered unstably, damaged by repeated exposure to human quantum resonance attacks. They're not just defeating us, the leader's voice carried across the emergency bunker. They're systematically dismantling everything we built over 12 millennia. The few remaining Virax representatives, their energy forms contained within protective fields, pulsed with fear. Everex, once so dismissive of human potential, now spoke with trembling frequencies. Their attack patterns, they're not random. Each strike targets a fundamental aspect of our civilization's infrastructure. They studied us. For years, they studied us. A holographic projection activated, showing the current state of the war. Human forces had contained most of the Concordat's remaining military assets in temporal bubbles, treating their mighty war fleets like insects in amber. The Artemis array had systematically destroyed their quantum communication networks, isolating each world and preventing any coordinated resistance. New transmission from Earth Command, a junior analyst announced, their crystalline form barely holding together. Ambassador Reed's face appeared again, but this time he wasn't alone. Admiral Blackwood stood beside him, her military uniform adorned with symbols the Concordat now recognized as warnings they should have hated. Your civilization spent millennia evolving beyond physical form, Reed began. You thought this made you superior. Instead, it made you predictable. While you focused on transcending your bodies, humanity focused on transcending limitations. Blackwood stepped forward. Every weapon we've revealed was designed specifically to counter your perceived advantages. Your crystalline forms, vulnerable to quantum resonance, your energy states, disruptible by dark matter manipulation, your advanced communications, susceptible to temporal interference. We spent centuries fighting ourselves, Reed continued. Each war taught us something new. Each conflict forced us to adapt. While you were celebrating your enlightenment, we were preparing for every possible scenario. The projections showed new human ships emerging from artificial wormholes, their designs unlike anything seen before. These weren't just warships, they were predators given form, their living metal hulls shifting and adapting to any resistance they encountered. Your final defensive line will fall in approximately 6 hours, Blackwood stated matter-of-factly. Your remaining fleet assets will be neutralized in 12. We control your quantum substrates, your communication networks, and your supply lines. You have one option remaining. Vex-4's form pulsed with defeated resignation. Surrender. No, Reed corrected. Understanding. True understanding of what humanity represents. We're not just another species seeking power. We're the embodiment of evolution's harshest lessons. Every human weapon, every strategy, every deception, they're all born from millions of years of survival on a world that taught us to adapt or die. The human leaders let that sink in before delivering their final message. The galaxy will know this story, Blackwood declared. How the mighty Concordat dismissed humanity as primitive, only to discover we had evolved beyond their comprehension. How their assumption of superiority led to their downfall. The stars will remember why Earth's apex predators learned to hide their strength until the perfect moment to strike. As the transmission ended, the remaining Concordat leaders faced a truth they had been too arrogant to see. Humanity hadn't needed uplifting. They had already evolved into something far more dangerous than mere technological advancement could produce. They had become the perfect predators, hiding in plain sight until the moment to strike. 50 years after the Concordat War, the galaxy was a very different place. The great halls of the new galactic assembly on Mars hummed with activity as representatives from 100 species gathered to mark the anniversary. The crystalline architecture, a reminder of the fallen Nexians, now housed a very different kind of government. Ambassador Reed, now aged but still commanding respect, stood at the podium where dozens of holographic displays showed the proceedings to worlds across known space. Beside him, Admiral Blackwood's daughter, Fleet Commander Diana Blackwood, represented humanity's continued vigilance. A half-century ago, Reed began, "This galaxy learned a fundamental truth about humanity, not through our words, but through our actions. Today we gather not to celebrate victory, but to remember its cost." The assembled aliens shifted uncomfortably. Many were former Concordat members who had switched allegiance when they realized the inevitable outcome. Others were independent worlds that had watched in awe and terror as humanity revealed their true capabilities. The remaining Nexians have successfully adapted to their new crystalline forms, Reed continued, forms that can withstand quantum resonance. The Varax have begun exploring physical manifestation again, recognizing a wisdom in maintaining multiple states of existence. Evolution continues, as it always has. Diana Blackwood stepped forward, but the greatest evolution has been in understanding. Humanity doesn't seek to dominate, despite our capabilities. We seek balance. Like any apex predator, we recognize our role in maintaining the ecosystem, in this case, the galactic community. The assembly chamber's displays showed the transformation of known space. The Artemis array, once a weapon of unprecedented power, now served as a defensive network protecting allied worlds. The quantum technology that had devastated the Concordat had been adapted to enhance communication and trade. We revealed our nature not out of pride, but necessity, Reed explained. The galaxy needed to understand why Earth's history forged us into what we are. Every human achievement, every technological breakthrough, comes from a simple truth. We never stopped evolving, never stopped adapting. A Nexian representative, their new crystalline form incorporating organic elements, rose to speak. We thought evolution meant transcending physical form. Humanity taught us it means transcending limitations while remembering what made us strong. Precisely, Diana nodded. Our ships still carry weapons that can tear reality apart. Our colonies still maintain defenses that can rewrite physics itself. But they exist not to threaten, but to remind. Earth's apex predators learn to show mercy, but never at the cost of vigilance. The assembly watched as new data streamed across their displays. Human expansion had slowed deliberately, their territories now serving as protective boundaries between potentially aggressive species. They had become what nature had always intended, predators who maintained balance through their mere presence. The legacy of the Concordat War, Reed concluded, isn't the technology we revealed or the victories we achieved. It's the understanding that true strength lies not in dominance, but in wisdom. Humanity remains the galaxy's apex predator, not because we wish to rule, but because someone must remind the cosmos what evolution favors those who learn from their mistakes. As the assembly concluded, representatives from across the galaxy reflected on how profoundly their understanding had changed. Humanity hadn't just won a war, they had reshaped galactic civilization's understanding of power itself. In the space lanes and trading posts, in diplomatic chambers and scientific institutes, a new saying had emerged: "Beware the species that hides its teeth." It was a reminder that somewhere in the galaxy, watching and waiting, Earth's children maintained their vigil, apex predators who had learned to be peacekeepers, but never forgot how to hunt. The stars had learned to fear humanity, not for what they had done, but for what they could do. And in that fear, they found respect, understanding, and perhaps most surprisingly, protection. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Evolution wasn't about becoming the strongest, it was about becoming the most adaptable. And humanity, with their hidden teeth and watchful eyes, had mastered that art beyond any species' comprehension.